Hello, everybody. It's good to see you. I'm Tasha Oglesby, and I am in the early learning unit of KDE. And I'm going to be going over the preschool enrollment count and the QA preschool report. So what we'll do today is we'll look at the eligibility of preschool, how the preschool report pulls the data sources. We're going to look at the detailed preschool enrollment count, and we're going to look at the new QA preschool error report, and we're going to define some of those errors. Okay, so how do you qualify for preschool? So it has specific qualifications. You can be 4 by August 1st and be considered at risk based on 160% of the federal poverty line. Or you can be 4 on or by August 1st and be enrolled in foster care or considered homeless by the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. Another way that you can qualify is to be 4 with a disability and have an active IEP. We also take 3-year-olds who have a disability and have an active IEP. And how are they funded? So our statute takes the average number of your children that are enrolled in preschool on December 1 and March 1 and then average them. And those numbers are pulled right from the preschool enrollment report. So that's why it's really essential that your data is in there accurately and that you have your data in by December 1 and March 1. When we get the sum of that average, it's multiplied by a per child rate that's approved by the Kentucky Board of Education. So where does all this information pull from in Infinite Campus? It looks at 3 areas. It's going to look at the Enrollment tab, the Preschool Service tab, and the IEP. So on the Enrollment tab, this report only pulls those children that have a P and service type. So that P primary service type. It also only pulls state grade levels that are 97, 98, and 99. And we use that benchmark of August 1. How old were they on August 1 to determine that state grade level? So if they were 2 on August 1, they're 97. If they're 3 on August 1, they're 98. If they're 4 on August 1, they're 99. And then it's going to look to see if you have that preschool service tab. When you create that preschool service tab, on the left side, there's going to be a preschool type. It's a box, and in that box are all the different funding categories for that report. So each box will pull that student's record into a funding category. So state funded with disability, they have an IEP. Head Start, that box actually removes you from the report because Head Start is federally funded. State funded at risk, those are those children again. The family income is at 160% of the federal poverty level or below. Head Start Enhanced, those are children who 4-year-old children who qualify for preschool, state funded with disability or at risk, but they're also receiving additional Head Start services. Possibly they have a family service worker assigned to them, or they have they're participating in parent engagement that's funded by Head Start. The qualifier there is the grantee, the Head Start grantee must tell you how many of those Head Start enhanced children you can have. So those children do pull into the preschool report, but again, you must have record of how many students you can have on Head Start enhanced. Over income preschool, this is a box for 4-year-olds that actually qualifies for us that initial state funded with disabilities. If you're a 4-year-old with state funded with disabilities, we need an income level checked. So you would either check state funded at risk or over income preschool. And the reason we do this is because we run another report that asks us how many of your 4-year-olds with disabilities would qualify for income and how many would not. So this box is not for the teacher down the hall whose child is going to come to preschool because you have openings. The district's going to allow them. You would check, instead of that, you would check the other box and you could write in over income preschool there, or you could write in district funded, or you might have a student that you did not qualify for preschool, but you think they're going to qualify eventually for a disability, so you write in RTI. And the third place that this report pulls from is actually from the student's IEP, and that IEP has to be locked for it to pull. So when you pull this report, you're going to use it to confirm all the documentation that you have on your district preschool students. So do your records match what we're seeing in Infinite Campus? And to get there, the pathway is the Kentucky State Reporting, and then under that is Preschool Enrollment Count. When you click on that, you're going to have to select fall or spring, and then the count date is going to pre-populate. There are three report types in the system. We're going to look at the detailed report because that really helps us determine if the kiddos that we think we have are actually showing up in IC. So when you run this Excel report, it's going to show you your student name, the school, the birthday, the state grade levels, and that funding category that you pulled into. So when you pull up that report, at the top of it, it's going to have all those funding categories. So the first thing you have to do is you have to make sure that all your children that you think should be preschool funded are on the list. Once you find the list that all your children are there, you need to make sure they're in the right funding category. So if little Tasha is a 2-year-old and she has a mild to moderate disability, she would need a 1 in that funding category. And then a couple of boxes over, she would also need to be carried over into the total for mild to moderate disabilities. The next thing you need to do, you need to see, are there any students that have zeros all the way across those funding categories? Because that's telling you that they're not pulling into this report or any funding category. Now, instead of what we used to have to do is we saw we had a child, then we have to go back in their records and search, put on our CSI hat and try to find out why they didn't pull into that funding category. Now we have an error report. So we're going to look at that and show you how you can run that to see why that child didn't pull into the funding count. So here's the pathway to get that to resolve those errors. It's Kentucky State Reporting, and then it is actually under the KDE reports, and it's called QA Preschool Quality Assurance Preschool. And you have to have access to this report, so if you're in Infinite Campus and you don't see it, you'll need to contact your IC person to give you access. When you click on that, it's going to show you three reports. We're going to look at the error report because our mission today is to figure out why the child's not pulling into our funding count. So this is a long list of all the errors that this report highlights, but we're glad it's all there. I'm going to kind of skim through that, and then later in the presentation, we're going to look at some more in depth. So the first four are actually issues with the IEP, the primary disability, the special education status, and the setting. They're all blank, or the IEP is unlocked. So the report will tell you that. It'll also tell you if that student is in the incorrect state grade level. It also tell you that if you have on the enrollment tab, there is a state exclude preschool box. If you've got that checked, it does exactly what it says. It excludes you from your any state funding reports. In fact, I can't even see that child's documents until you uncheck that box. The next one is preschool service record, and it's a warning. It's the only warning we have in this report. And that's because it may not be a mistake, but it's a reminder if it is. Because sometimes you put all your preschool kiddos into Infinite Campus and you think, well, I'll go back later and do the preschool service record. And then it gets around December 1 and none of your children are pulling in. It's because those preschool service records aren't in the system. But then there may be districts that include more students that they know aren't going to qualify for preschool. So they include every 4-year-old that opts to come to preschool. But they still want their records in Infinite Campus. So they want their immunization, they want their birth certificates, they want their classroom, they want their schedule. So they just don't do the preschool record because they know that child's not going to pull into the count. So there's no reason to use that tab. And that's completely fine. But we just want to warn those people that have forgotten to fill out their preschool service record. Duplicate preschool records is the next one, and we're going to look at that further. We're also going to look at the next one, which is about the IEP and what box is checked. No income level check for grade 99 students with disabilities. This is that report that we mentioned earlier. If they're a 99 with a disability, they either need um, state funded at risk checked or they need over income preschool checked. That helps us with that report and we appreciate it. Then we've got several that are age restrictive errors. And this is because you have to be a 4-year-old to utilize these in funding categories. So sometimes you put a 3-year-old in because you know their income is at risk, but they actually can't qualify for at risk until they're 4. And then that last one is a grade 99 always needs an income level checked. When you pull in this report, you're going to want to filter 2 columns. And that's because this report collects any student that's been enrolled in your district from the beginning of the first enrollment date. So if little Tasha came till October and then went to another school after fall break, I would still be on your report. So you're going to want to filter me out so that you're not working in that data. So you go over to the column that says enrollment end date, and you're going to deselect all those end dates. Another column that you're going to need to filter is the Head Start, because again, those Head Start children are federally funded, so you're not going to want them in this report that's telling you why students didn't pull to the enrollment count. So here's our report, and on the left side, you're going to have that error message, and then we've taken a we've broken it. It goes across the page, but we've broken it in half so you can see the columns. Um, and then in each column that there's an error, it's going to be highlighted. So if you look at the first one, it says the primary disability is blank. And then if you go over to the column that says primary disability, that's going to be highlighted. So you see this error, you go back into IC, you make the changes, and if that student has no other errors in their record, they will drop from this error report. Okay, so we're going to look at some of the defining errors. Student is not in the correct grade level. So at the top, you'll see what the report will look like. It'll give you that error message. Student is not in the correct grade level. It gives you the birth date. It tells you what age they were on August 1st. And then it tells you the grade level that you put them in as, or the district put them in as. So if they were 4 on August 1st, they should be a 99. And you see in this record, they put them in as a 98. So that's why that student isn't pulling into the funding account. Duplicate preschool records. At the top, that's what it looks like on the report. You'll get the warning message. And then under the column, it'll say, yes, there's a duplicate preschool record. On the bottom, that's what it looks like at Infinite Campus. So somebody has started a preschool record and then come in and done a second one. It could have been um, child started as at risk, and then they later qualified for income. And they later qualified for disability, so somebody created a second tab. Infinite Campus doesn't know which one to read, so it just kicks the record out. So you need to make sure you only have one preschool service record. Um, Does state funded with disabilities checked? IEP is null. So there's your warning message. There's the column that it's in. This means someone's checked state funded with disabilities, but there's no IEP in the system. Sometimes people do that because they think, well, we'll get that IEP done before December 1, and then it doesn't happen. And that's why this will pull an error message.
While you transition, I just want to remind folks that they can put questions into app.gosoapbox.com, and the access code is KDE data.
Okay, I think this is maybe our last one slide. Start date is prior to enrollment. This is really important. You'll see at the top, the enrollment start date, which pulls from your enrollment tab, is different than your preschool service start date. And this one is actually before the enrollment tab. So the start date has to actually be the enrollment date or later. It cannot be prior to the enrollment date. And these are just some of the eras that we're exploring. We hope you be excited about this report because it's new. Let us know what you think and if you have any suggestions. And feel free to reach out to Andrea Bartholomew or myself.